When the orphaned bear cub Coda met Thomas, no one expected it would change their lives. Helpless and alone, he found care and warmth in a human who became his family. Thomas Hayes, an experienced animal handler, had no idea that searching for a polar bear for a movie project would turn into something far greater than a job. While looking for the right animal, he stumbled upon an 8-week-old cub in a tough situation. His mother had already raised 10 cubs and could no longer care for him. Coda was left alone, without a mother's warmth or protection. Seeing the cub in the zoo, Thomas knew he couldn't leave him there. He didn't see a wild beast, but a tiny, defenseless creature that needed someone to look after it. Thus began a story that shook everyone who followed it. Initially, Thomas planned only to train Coda for the filming. He took him home to provide care and instruction, but it soon became evident that what was forming between them went far beyond the typical bond of a handler and an animal. Every day, Thomas looked after the cub, feeding him, playing with him, teaching him commands. What amazed him most was how Coda responded, not just following orders, but seeking connection, drawn to his rescuer. Sometimes he'd lie beside Thomas and fall asleep peacefully, trusting him as a cub trusts its mother. It seemed impossible for a friendship to form between a wild animal and a human, but their bond astonished everyone. Soon, something incredible happened that left even skeptics in awe. At first, it was just my job, but the more time I spent with Coda, the more attached I became. He became more than just a charge. He became part of my life, Thomas admits. When he first held the little cub in his arms, it trembled with fear and weakness. There was no trace of the usual wariness or aggression of wild animals in its eyes, only confusion and helplessness. Thomas realized that Coda needed not just care, but warmth, attention, and affection. The first weeks were a real challenge. Coda was too small to eat on his own, so Thomas fed him from a bottle, like a baby. He'd wake up at night to check on the cub, ensuring he was okay, monitoring his breathing, and tucking him in with a warm blanket. Sometimes, Coda would wake up and whimper softly, and Thomas would sit beside him, stroking his soft fur and whispering soothing words. Gradually, an unbreakable bond formed between them. Days were filled with training, play, and walks. Thomas taught Coda commands, but he also simply cared for him, feeding him, hugging him, talking to him. He made him feel safe, never raising his voice or forcing him to do anything. In return, Coda showed remarkable attachment. He didn't just obey Thomas, he sought him out like a loved one. Sometimes, after long play sessions and walks, Coda would rest his big head on Thomas's lap and fall asleep, letting out contented sighs. He trusted him the way a small child trusts a parent. Thomas's wife Anna watched their friendship with admiration. Coda doesn't see Thomas as just a guide. To him, he's both mother and father. They trust each other the way only the closest companions do, she said. At times, she noticed Thomas talking to Coda as an equal, recounting his day, sharing his thoughts. It seemed the bear understood, listening intently before gently pressing against him, as if to comfort him. As time passed, Coda grew, but his demeanor didn't change. He still trusted Thomas and saw him as family. The most astonishing thing was how he expressed his affection. When Thomas petted him or spoke to him, Coda made sounds like a cat's purr. This unusual behavior stunned everyone who heard it. Wild bears don't purr, but Coda made an exception for Thomas. Thomas first heard this sound when the cub was still tiny. He lay beside him to calm him before sleep and suddenly felt a soft vibration, like purring. At first he couldn't believe his ears, but then he understood. It was a sign of absolute trust. From then on, Coda purred whenever he felt happy next to the human who saved him. Years went by, and Coda grew into an adult. The time came to face an important question: what next? Some believed he should be released into the wild, but Thomas knew a bear raised by humans couldn't survive alone. If set free, he wouldn't know how to find food, hunt, or avoid danger. His world lacked the harsh survival lessons wild cubs learn because a human had raised him instead of a mother. It was decided to keep Coda under Thomas's care in a specially designed reserve. There, he lived in near-natural conditions, but remained safe. Moving to the reserve was a true test for Thomas. He'd grown used to Coda, who had become part of his life. Their bond was so strong that parting was hard for both. When Thomas closed the gate behind his friend for the last time, he felt his heart breaking. He knew he was doing the right thing, but it seemed like he was losing a piece of himself. Yet even after the move, Coda didn't forget his friend. Whenever Thomas visited, the bear greeted him with joy and that purring sound that amazed everyone. He'd approach, rubbing his head against Thomas's shoulder as if saying, "I remember you. You're my family." Thomas realized his fears were unfounded. They hadn't truly parted. Their connection couldn't fade with distance because such relationships don't depend on time or place. The story of Thomas and Coda touched the hearts of countless people across the globe. It became a living testament to the idea that true friendship transcends all boundaries, be they species, geography, or the preconceived notions of what should be possible. It doesn't matter whether it binds a human to a wild creature or two beings from entirely different walks of life. Such a bond flourishes wherever there is sincerity, care, empathy, and a genuine desire to understand another, even if that other seems so vastly different that, at first glance, connection might appear unthinkable. Their tale wasn't just a fleeting curiosity, it evolved into a profound symbol of hope, challenging long-held assumptions about the divide between humanity and the natural world. When people first heard about Thomas and his extraordinary companion, the reactions varied widely, though skepticism dominated the initial response. After all, polar bears are among the most formidable predators on Earth, sculpted by nature to endure the brutal, icy expanse of the Arctic. Their lives are governed by raw instinct, hunting, surviving, and thriving in an environment where weakness is not an option. They are not creatures that seem to require human care, nor are they expected to harbor any capacity for affection toward a person. That was the prevailing belief, deeply ingrained in the collective imagination, until the world witnessed something astonishing. Video footage of a massive polar bear, Coda, tenderly nuzzling Thomas, his handler, with a gentleness reminiscent of a child seeking comfort from a parent. The sight was so unexpected, so contrary to everything people thought they knew, that it left them questioning the very foundations of their understanding.